My deep appreciation of theater history was instilled in me by Tom Empey, a college mentor to me and hundreds of others. While teaching Greek theater terms, he would grab the fabric of his slacks and say, "You see these pants? Euripides Eumenides," making light of content that could be considered rather dry and stuffy while still maintaining respect for the art, which is what I want to do with this podcast. For each episode, I invite a guest from the many paths my theater career has taken me down. I give my guest no idea what we'll be talking about, but they know we're going to find an outrageous story about theater history and perhaps get a better understanding about why we're still doing it after all these years. So welcome to Euripides Eumenides, and I am your host, Aaron Odom.
Apocalypse, apocalypse, I said, why you wanna show up now? Just when the heart of my life was getting good. I'll give you one more chance. Walk on out of the door, yeah. Get your ass to getting where the getting is good.
Good morrow, Eumenidites. This is Aaron Odom from Trident Theater bringing you another episode of Euripides Eumenides, a theater history podcast. I'm just going to jump right into the episode today as in the midst of directing the annual production of Rocky Horror Picture Show that I do every year and talk about on the show quite frequently, and as I prepare to direct a full-length play in the spring, and amidst everything else that life throws at me, unfortunately, I couldn't prevent the guest I had planned for this episode from experiencing a personal tragedy, which prevented us from meeting and recording. I also unfortunately had no backup guest, so I don't exactly have new content for this episode. What I do have is very similar to what I provided for you in episode 96, The Kaiser Cracks Wise. I have appeared on the podcast High Tales of History a few times, and their format is very similar to mine. Sisters Laurel, Rockall, and Katie Wahl research and prepare a story from history to tell each other without any hint to the topic being discussed. So each sister is surprised in each episode. And to add to all this, they each partake of a substance to relax and enjoy themselves further and further as the episode progresses. Like I said in episode 96, sometimes it's just a well-mixed cocktail or some sort of cannabis-related consumable. So, this is my cutting from one of their episodes I appeared on, and once you're done here, I highly recommend listening to the rest of that episode, in which the sisters covered the modern state of professional wrestling, as well as the short-lived Gorgeous Ladies of Wrestling, or GLOW, as popularized by that Netflix TV show. I'll leave a link in the show notes here. But for my portion, which started the whole episode, I take the ladies back to the Roman Empire and discuss not theater, but the other forms of entertainment that theater had to compete with. Thus, I give you a short little blurb of theater-adjacent history in episode 98, Popular Roman Entertainment.
Not that we've had a lot of guests on the show before, but we like to center our stories around our guest special interests, but just at the edge of one's interest. So hopefully they can learn something new and you're also learning something that you knew that you didn't know before. And so tonight, everyone, we have our story centered around entertainment, theatrics, and history. So a little combining of our worlds. From my understanding, Aaron's going to be taking it way back in history.
Oh, yeah.
So we're going to let him kick things off. Aaron Odom of Euripides Eumenides, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Well, okay. So, not to mislead your listeners at all, but unfortunately, mine is not entirely going to be about theater tonight. We are going to be going back to the early Common Era. We are going to go back to ancient Rome tonight. Okay. Yeah. Now, from a theater perspective, so just kind of rounding it out, as that's apparently my theme coming on here. In my theatrical studies, it was made really clear to me that as time passed from ancient Greece to ancient Rome, there was not necessarily less interest in theater, because I think, it's kind of common knowledge. Ancient Greece is like, that's where a ton of plays were going on. But rather in ancient Rome, there was just more stuff to do. So we're going to talk about some of that stuff tonight.
Nice.
And basically, I like to think of ancient Rome as a period of great assimilation. So as the Roman borders expanded, they'd take over lands and they'd pick up things from here and there from the cultures they would overtake. It was more or less like they were moving in and going, hey, yeah, we're taking over, but we're going to try our best to incorporate the stuff that you guys are doing right now. So their horizons expanded. It was just like a really, really nice conqueror just walking right in and being like, I really like all your stuff. It's mine now. But, you're not going to notice a lot of changes other than, I rule everything. So, yeah. Okay. However, there were some things that they just flat out wouldn't do. I mean, for example, the tradition of the nude human body being basically socially acceptable. Out the window. Or homosexual relationships between men, and in Rome that just kind of became verboten. Incidentally, if you want to hear more about homosexual relationships between men, you can go back and listen to my episode 12, The Phallus. That is a fascinating episode. Yeah, Katie, if you're not familiar, ancient Greeks were kind of like obsessed with peepees. So
I mean,
yeah, to the point where at an ancient theater festival, they would pretty much parade like a 12-foot dildo around town.
Is that the raising and lowering of the wiener? Is that festival?
No, but I think
okay,
I know
that's
what
a
you're
different
talking
place.
About. So, one great thing about taking over a bunch of new places, you had lots more tax money to be brought in. So the Roman government became very, very wealthy. And plus, assimilating a lot of new places means there's a lot of new gods now in the pantheon, because they just come in and go, oh, this is your god? Okay, it's going to be our god now. It could be like, yeah, we have a god for steamed rice. It's like, yeah, we can work with that. We can work with that. So now we just have so much more money to be spent in offerings to the gods. So Rome becomes super wealthy and had a ton of time to spend on social activities that were all in praise to gods or leaders or both. And like I said, theater was just one of these things to keep people busy as far as popular entertainment is concerned. I mean, think about it today. What are some forms of popular entertainment? Ways that people spend their time for leisure. What do we do?
A lot of screen time.
Screen time.
Video games.
Video
games.
Video games. Yep. Yeah.
Theater,
movies. We'll go out to eat. We'll go sporting events. People love their sports. Now in Rome, these big events usually would all be around festivals that happen on like an annual or a seasonal or even a monthly or sometimes a weekly basis. Like, it's Friday, time to run some chariots. Or it could be just spur of the moment, because the Romans liked to celebrate themselves. So, a Caesar could just go, 6 months ago, I killed a lion in the mountains. Let's celebrate. And they would.
Cheers.
Yeah. But besides theater, what would you say is like the most popular Roman entertainment that you can think of?
Like the Colosseum.
Yeah, Colosseum.
Like gladiators and stuff like that. Yeah.
Gladiators and stuff. Okay, so that's the one that comes down to us the most. Yeah, and we're going to talk about that here in a little bit. So you want to know something amazing about all these festivals and stuff that would happen?
I would love to know.
They were free.
Yes.
Everything was state sponsored because they just wanted to say, hey, isn't Rome freaking great? Why don't you come and enjoy it? So pretty much these were open to almost all social classes. Everybody went. And as I'm going to get into it a little bit later, there did become kind of a little bit of division in like what they would do, but pretty much everybody was at these things. Okay. So there was a quote I found, and I think it's from the poet Juvenal. How do you keep a people happy? The Latin term panem et circenses. I think I said that right. It's Latin for bread and circuses.
Yeah.
Keep them fed.
Snacks and entertainment.
Keep them fed. Keep them entertained. Yep. And free. Oh. Yeah. So they're not going to question anything you do. Mm-hmm. But remember, we provided these games for you. So that little revolution you're thinking of, let's maybe sidebar that. Okay, so you said the Colosseum. Colosseum is a huge thing. Everybody knows about the Colosseum, still can tour it and everything today. And the games that were played there were called Ludi, Ludi. And all the festivals would be called Ludi something. So the big one that happened in Rome every year was the Ludi Romani. It depends on who you ask as far as historical research, but the Colosseum could hold somewhere between 40,000 to 80,000 spectators.
Oh shit, that's a lot. I mean, that's
Yeah.
like
That is a
like
lot.
one of those big stadiums,
Well,
you're in Wyoming.
yeah,
Like that's
yeah,
probably one of your football stadiums, isn't it? Or
well,
are
I
they
mean, like an NFL football stadium, I think has to have a minimum capacity of 75,000.
okay.
You look at like hockey or basketball arenas, I think their minimum has to be somewhere between 17 to 20,000, something like that. So yeah, enormous. 40 to 80, and usually it felt like about 40 were there because not everybody packed it in all the time. I think the only time it was actually fully packed was the opening of the Colosseum, and I didn't write down the year because who cares, it was the first one. So generally when you went to the Colosseum, you would see gladiators. Okay, so we're all familiar. We've seen the Russell Crowe movie, and there were tons of movies in the 50s and 60s that really glorified the whole gladiator mythos. Okay, gladiators were named so because of the basic weapon they would carry, called the gladius. And it was just a flat, broad, short sword, and it was really good for close combat. So you're gonna start to see a theme here. In that the Romans really like to try to incite better chances for bloodshed.
Oh yeah.
Okay, so if for example, like if your method of attacking was with a spear, well, that's kind of long range. That I'm probably not going to get hit by the other guy as much. No, we're going to give you this flat short sword and just go. So it's like you have to get in closer. Okay.
Ooh, wow.
Yeah. Now,
Sword.
the fights, the battles, they would publicize that they were reenactments of different military battles, or stories from fable or myth or something like that. So it would be like today, it would be like, and here's our fight between David and Goliath, and Goliath is going to die. Okay. So obviously, if you know anything about your Roman history, and we'll talk about it a little bit later, no, they weren't really telling stories from Christian mythos. They really didn't like that. But it would be something like, the story of the mythicized founders of Rome, Romulus and Remus, fought their way through, a pack of wolves to get whatever, right? So here's a fun thing. Gladiators were not like our sports figures today who are paid and they train and everything. They were pretty much exclusively slaves. And so basically they were owned, didn't get paid for anything. Basically your prize for winning was you got to live today.
So kind of like Thor.
Yeah.
When he gets put into the gladiator battle, like, this is what you're doing. Here, pick your weapon and get the hell out there. Smacks him on the ass. Get him, champ.
Yep, exactly. Surprisingly enough, pretty much every performance had about a 50% casualty rate.
Not great odds.
10 guys go in, 5 guys come out. Hey, good show. The playwright and philosopher Seneca wrote, "The only exit for a gladiator is death."
Yeah.
So,
eventually.
Yeah. And the thing is, like, they didn't get any of the money, but that there was gambling going on the side. People were putting bets down, and they were like, I'm pretty sure the guy that I saw yesterday is going to kill the guys that are up today. And so the slave owner would just be raking in stacks of cash. Thank you, slave. And maybe you get to live another day. Cool.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
So, I said the Romans weren't too keen on Christianity and Christians.
Right.
Yes.
So you know what else they got to do in the Colosseum?
Got to kill the Christians?
Feed them to lions.
Oh shit.
Now, this was more popularized in movies, so people went back and they researched this, and they were like, no, it wasn't just lions. See, the people who ran the Colosseum and the people who were sponsoring these things, well, they liked animals. They thought animals drew in a crowd. They were like, okay, cool. So let me go back to the Christians a little bit and talk about the beef between Romans and Christians. I'm really, really watering this down. There's just a long history of Roman emperors trying to get Christians to pay sacrifice to Roman gods. Now, if the Christians refuse, they're like, oh, well, now we have to kill you. Mm-hmm. Oh, that's okay. And you know what we're going to do it? We're actually going to make a show out of it. So people can they really understand that we're serious about sacrificing to our gods. Okay. It didn't really matter. I mean, I don't think people were like, well, I'm never going to convert to Christianity. They would go to the show and just watch somebody get his throat ripped open by a bear or a wolf or something. And like I was saying, animals in the Colosseum, pretty common to see. In some entertainment settings in Europe, they would put animals in the arena, any kind of animal, and they'd either have them fight another type of animal or people.
Yep.
They call these hunts.
Gross. In all the ways. Oh.
Okay.
Oh no.
It is said that on opening day of the Colosseum, 5,000 animals were killed.
No.
And a whole menagerie. I mean, they would get bears, they would get mountain goats, they would get mountain lions, they would get just anything that had teeth or hooves or claws, and be like, let's see if these things can kill each other. And yeah, so I mean, it was the hugest celebration ever in Rome, and they just wanted to give a good show. And some species actually disappeared from certain areas of the Roman Empire because they were hunted for their use in games.
Oh my.
Oh my, indeed. Katie, describe my face. What's my face doing? Describe it for the people.
A little bit of well, you wouldn't get the reference. There's a horror movie where someone had the face stretched over them and like pinned to the rest of
Brazil? Brazil? Is that it? What is that?
That might have been it. It's like little metal things that are like stretching the face over. That's kind of what I was thinking.
Hellraiser?
Of. That is Hellraiser. Well, that's probably one section of Hellraiser.
Where he goes, Jesus wept, and the whole thing. Anyway, but my face is shocked. It says
that too. Yeah, sorry.
So this whole being fed to lions or beasts, well, it wasn't really just reserved for Christians. I mean, that's something we hear now popularly. It's like the Romans fed the Christians to the lions. Oh, no. If you were an enemy of the state, you could be put out there too. Doesn't matter. Mm-hmm. Okay, so there's another thing that happened in the Colosseum, which I find absolutely amazing and stunning. I mean, you hear these great things about the Romans being amazing architects and engineers and stuff. So another thing that they would do in the Colosseum, it's called naumachie. It's a naval battle.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Because they flood it.
They would flood it.
Is that why there's the channels underneath it? It's like if you see the Colosseum now, that's why you see like some of the different tunnels, because they were chambers.
Yes. Some of the tunnels were used in that way. Some of them were just passageways because they would store the animals below the deck. But yeah, some of them were absolutely sewers that would go out to, rivers and tributaries and stuff. But yeah, they would just get a couple boats, get about 30, 40 guys on each boat, and they'd say, this was the siege of Troy. And then they'd just shoot arrows and kill each other on the water.
That one sounds like a little bit more fun.
Yeah,
if you're going to have to watch people die. I was like, that sounds like fun. I was like, you're also witnessing a lot of people's deaths. So
yeah, it's exactly.
But I suppose if you had to choose one or the other, like Laurel, which show are you going to? You have to go. I go, no, I'll go to the naval battle one.
Yeah, because some of those deaths might be drowning, and that happens under the water. So I might not see that.
Oh no, I didn't think about that. That's awful.
Yeah. I mean, but on an entertainment level, I'm like, okay, I can see where they would be doing that. I just took my family, my boys, my mom, Andra, the woman who walks beside me, her 2 kids. We all went to Las Vegas for about 5 days, and we saw the Cirque du Soleil show Caw. And freaking amazing. If you haven't ever been, like, that is everybody put it on your bucket list, even if you're not really into theater at all. That was one of the most stunning shows I've ever seen. But there's a scene, and it tells this whole story about a tribe being invaded by, like, kind of this warring tribe, and some of the peaceful tribe gets off onto a boat and they're sailing on the water, but some of the bad guys get on there with them, and they end up getting in this huge storm. So I mean, as I describe it, it's just like a kind of crescent-shaped boat, and it's kind of on a rocker, I think, or it might just have been that all the characters on it were rocking it back and forth. And it was one of the coolest things I've ever seen. And there's like projection of rainstorm and everything, but it looked like this boat is being violently tossed around in a storm at sea. And I was researching this a little bit. I was like, oh yeah, it was kind of like that, just less death. Just a lot less of, actual arrows going into people and arms being cut off. Yeah.
I think that's what my brain was thinking. I think I only thought so far in terms of entertainment value of, well, what's kind of cool to see the Coliseum filled up with water, and then there's boats, and then there's like a whole thing played out. That sounds fun. Yeah, that's about as far as I think I thought on that one.
So yeah, lots of death. Okay, so I'm going to get away from the Coliseum for a little bit, because one other thing that we probably are all really, really familiar with is chariot races. Okay, and they'd be happening at the Circus Maximus generally, but there were a lot of them that went around. And as we know, they're just basically chariot races where, teams of men and horses in chariots would go around a big, like, oval shaped track, and they have to go around a certain number of times. The person who does it the fastest or the earliest, they win. Well, these were also quite deadly.
Oh yeah.
I mean,
yeah,
not only were they just racing, but competitors would be attacking each other from their chariots and, throwing spears and throwing anything they could, swinging their little swords and any kind of a weapon that they had. But more often, because of the spectacular design of chariots, they would often flip over. and the riders would be trampled, and the competitors would just have to ride the storm and get past it. But in the research that I did on this, this was considered more family entertainment.
Oh, naturally.
sure.
Well, I mean, it's a little less death, and hey, horses, kids love animals.
The dirt really clots the blood a lot, so it makes it a little more PG.
Right. And they're like, I don't see it as much, so it's fine. Speaking of horses, another thing that we probably are not aware of that spectators love to go see were equestrian events, because horses were really, really important to the Roman culture. So there was an event called the Lusus Troiae, and my Latin is terrible, but it's called the Game of Troy. And it basically is showing all kinds of amazing tricks that young men could do on horseback in battle. So, it might be like their, 12 young men would show off what they could do, like throwing spears accurately, or, hitting targets with swords and stuff. But I would imagine that also probably ended in some deaths and stuff.
It's probably fair to assume so.
It's probably, yeah. Hey, I've got a great one that people love to do a whole bunch of. These were announced publicly and scheduled, and people would go. Public executions.
Oh,
that one.
Classic
yes.
entertainment. Yeah.
Put the head on the block. Let's crucify these people. Everybody come and watch. Yes, bring the kids. Oh man, yeah, that was a great time for everybody, because really the Roman government was like, okay, we're going to do this in public because we want people to understand the punishment for the crime that this person committed. Okay. And I don't think anybody went, well, you know what? I'm not going to steal anymore because look what happened to that guy. They were just like, oh, good. Another death. Wow. Look at that head roll. But getting more related to theater, one common thing you'd see in streets and in Rome are mimes. and usually they would have like masks or something like that, so you could tell they were a mime. But these were a little like dirty, naughty mimes. I mean, they kind of like to be a little bit more overtly sexual. Not like in ancient Greece where you had your satyrs with their fake phallus swinging between their legs. But I mean, they might follow a woman who they think is rather attractive or something like that, and like try to have gropey hands or something, not really touching anybody, but everybody's like, look at the funny mime.
Little hands going up your toga and stuff. No, thank you. Oh my God.
Where'd you get this?
Do not drop anything or bend over in front of the mime. I'm just saying.
No, absolutely not. Absolutely not. No.
Dirty little mime.
As far as theater is concerned, with all of this, the games being more generally enjoyed by the general populace, the more educated members of society started to be a little poo-poo with all this death. And they were like, you Romans have... you've sunken to the basest states of yourselves, so we're going to the theater. And they thought that that's where their intellects would be treated with a little bit more propriety. Now, today, not too much is known about Roman tragedies. I mean, we know a lot about them, but they just weren't as popular as the Roman comedies. So if you've ever seen the musical or play A Funny Thing Happened on the Way to the Forum, just watch it. I mean, anytime I would teach Roman theater to people, I'm like, we're just going to watch this and you'll understand everything you need to know about Roman theater. So what you got out of Roman theater generally were plays that included suggested sexual impropriety, mistaken identity, men dressed as women, men being overtaken by their desire for food or wine or sex, the wealthy becoming poor, doors slamming so people couldn't understand who's going in this room, who's going to come out, we don't know, and much, much more. So frankly, there was just a lot to go do in Roman society besides theater. And again, generally, it was all free.
Nice.
And filled with death.
And filled with a lot of death. There were a lot of people who died for the purpose of your entertainment.
That's the ultimate sacrifice.
There it is. Thank you for dying, because it gave me a great night out.
Let's do it again next week.
Yes. Everybody's dying. Yeah. So yeah, there we go. Popular Roman entertainment.
Oh, thank you, Aaron. That was
wow,
that was fantastic.
Many deaths.
Romans.
We're such a violent species.
Indeed we are. Indeed we are. I mean, I left out the part everybody kind of knows about it. If a gladiator would survive, the crowd could still, vote on
like this whole thing.
The thumbs up, thumbs down, and it usually was the choice of Caesar if he was in attendance. So yeah, they'd all be like death, 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 and to keep him popular, he'd hold the thumb out level, and I mean, it all depended on what the crowd was doing that day. And I think they do that really, really well in the Gladiator movie with Russell Crowe and Joaquin Phoenix. Yeah. And I totally forgot it was Joaquin Phoenix until I watched it again recently. And I'm like, oh my God, that's Joker.
He's so good. Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Super into his sister.
Well, it was Connie Nielsen.
You know what? I recently found out that was true, actually.
I am not surprised.
I can imagine that, because, as you go through the years, you just talk about these people who, they're of the royal bloodline. Therefore, their bloodline is ordained by whatever is divine. And so therefore, it's like, so sleeping with my sister is okay. We are from the flesh of the Lord. So.
And we're keeping everything pure and we're passing on this really amazing.
And when our offspring is born with just one eyeball just off center in the middle of the forehead, we can go, that was the choice of the gods.
Cyclops. Well, like the Habsburg jaw, that's a very unfortunate, real, I don't know.
Yeah.
Underbite chin thing you got going on there, buddy.
Ooh. Hey friends, this is your host Aaron Odom coming at you again. I want to thank you for listening to today's episode, and if you liked what you heard, please leave us a review wherever you pick this podcast up, or go ahead and like, share, subscribe, all the cool stuff you do with podcasts. We are Trident Theater, that's Theatre. You can find us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, or at our website, www.tridenttheater.com. Once again, this is Aaron Odom, and we try to get a new episode out every 2 weeks, so hope to see you again in a fortnight.